Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Right on Crime podcast. I'm Will Cheatham, the Arkansas State Director with Right on Crime. I'm here today with my friend and colleague, Jim Bell. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Excellent. I'm glad to have you on. We're going to be talking today. Jim is the owner of the Hidden Creek Reentry facility. As I'm sure our listeners are aware, one of my big things is reentry, and I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to work with Jim here in the last year or so, working on some reentry. So, Jim, I want to talk about reentry, and I want to visit with you about the facility and whatnot for our listeners. So, start off, just tell me about I know the story, but our listeners don't. So, tell me about the origin story of Hidden Creek, when did it get started, how long it's been going. Just give me a rundown of that.
Okay. Well, Hidden Creek has been a reentry facility for probably, I want to say 8 to 10 years. And what we have is a facility where the Arkansas Department of Corrections sends to us inmates that have 18 months to go on their sentence or less. So it could be somebody with 12 months to go, 15 months to go, and they come to us and they are our inmates for 6 months. If they do everything they're told to do after 6 months, the rest of their sentence goes away. So it's gone. So they get out early. Now, in the meantime, what they do is they have to go to work every day, and our job is to find them a job. For the first 3 weeks, we get all the paperwork that they need to be employed basically for the rest of their life. We get their IDs, their social security cards, their driver's license, their birth certificates, and anything else that might be needed in the workforce. So after 3 weeks and all that's done, we will have them a job. They then go to work every day. Now, since we are a prison, we're under prison rules. That means they don't have a cell phone, they can't smoke, they can't do drugs, they can't drink, they can't drive a car. So they go to work every day. We take them to work, we bring them back, and we have several meetings with these folks throughout the week. Various mental health, anger management, financing, AA meetings, church meetings. We're trying to get these inmates as close to what is normal in society as we can. So what happens is during the week, they go to work, usually 5 days a week. We have to take them, we bring them back. Then we have churches that bring vans to the facility, and we'll take them to church on Sunday if they want to go. We have people that come in and either do AA meetings in our facility or take them out to other facilities to do AA meetings. What we have learned over the years is the prisons are full of people that if there had not been drugs or alcohol, they would probably be far less filled up. So what we're trying to do is change the attitude of these inmates so that when they leave, they realize that they can live a normal life without alcohol and drugs. So after getting 6 months practice, what we hope is that works. Now, 3 years ago, the state did a recidivism check on us and told us that we were at 23%, which is far better than any place else in Arkansas, probably anywhere in most states. And One of the reasons is because of all the things that I mentioned that we do that are different than a normal prison could possibly do.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's go through some of that, especially let's start with the work thing. What is your view on how important is the work, and how soon after, when they get to the facility, how soon do they start working?
The 22nd day.
The 22nd day. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so how important is that, getting to work, in your view, on their ultimate success in getting out?
Well, what we're trying to do is teach them, I'm going to say, responsibility. Several of these inmates have literally never had a job, never had a driver's license, and therefore they're not what I call members of society as we know it. So we're trying to develop them into that. One of the things that we do, we make sure that when they leave our facility, they have a way to get to work, which means generally speaking, we end up helping them buy an automobile just before they leave. So our parking lot will be full of automobiles that they're getting ready to drive out when they leave, because without transportation, again, they don't have a chance. What happens is when they go to work every day, we save their paychecks until they leave, except they pay about $500 a month in rent, and the rest is in the savings account. So when they leave, there's enough money in the account to buy an inexpensive car, and that's what we do.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Now, what kind of jobs are they going to work while they're at Hidden Creek?
They're typically factory jobs. There's some landscaping jobs. One of the country clubs here in town hires them to do golf course work. But generally speaking, it's probably mainly factory work.
Okay. But still good jobs, nevertheless.
Yes. Normally $15 to $18 an hour.
Yeah. Right. That's great. So, how many, while all the inmates are there, is everybody going out to work every day, or are they working in shifts, or, how does that work?
Well, some have nighttime shifts. They must work 40 hours a week. We allow them to work up to 60 hours. So we have a few facilities that actually want them to work overtime. So when they leave, they might have $20,000 in their pocket because they're working longer hours than somebody that's on a 40-hour-a-week job.
Right. Okay.
But it's night shifts, daytime shifts, combination of all.
And even if they're working the night shift, somebody's still taking them to that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have, and again, our facility has no locked doors. We have no bars. We have ankle monitors on everybody, so we know where they are at all times.
Yep.
Generally speaking, we have 3 people to a room. They each have a private bath in that room. They have a small kitchen. As many people have said, I wish when I went to college I had a dorm room that nice, and I agree with that.
Right. Well, and do you think that structured work environment and being in that facility is that something that's really a big factor towards success and lower recidivism, you think?
I think if these were scattered across the state or across the country for that matter, the whole prison system would change. Keep in mind, in the regular prison system in Arkansas, now I'm only speaking of Arkansas, when somebody leaves the system, they've had no practice at anything. They probably don't have a car. They probably have lost their ID. They probably don't have a driver's license. And they're sent home to some small town in Arkansas to try to make it. And therefore, they quite often do not.
So that gets me to my next question. I'm interested in the IDs and the driver's licenses, that sort of thing. Now, ADC does do some of that. And for our listeners, ADC is short for Arkansas Department of Corrections. So ADC, they do some of that, but you all do as well, right? What are the differences in some of those, services that you're providing versus ADC?
Well, the only thing that the ADC does, and it's in a very few instances, is get them an ID. They don't get them driver's license. They don't get them birth certificates. They don't get them insurance. They don't do the things that we do. So it's a very minor part that they do.
Right. Well, and those things that you all are doing, that's pretty important for ultimate success as well.
Extremely important.
Yeah. Okay. Now, are they taking, so a lot of these people are still, they're still in the system. They're still in ADC's custody. Are there any, do any of them still have court dates they need to go to? Are you all facilitating them getting to those court dates, that sort of thing?
There are a few of those. That's correct.
Okay.
And one of the main things is we want to make sure when they leave, they can go out into the free world. And if there's a court date hanging, that can sometimes impede that ability. So we try to get that solved before they leave.
Okay. And then tell me about what are some other things that go on in the facility that have to do with just general life skills, I guess?
Well, again, they have classes that they go to every day. Again, anger management, it could be parenting, it could be financial, could be mental health, could be substance abuse class. So they have various things that they do during the day when they are not working. They have the ability, if they choose, they can actually take college courses while they're sitting there If they have some spare time, we have a college that will allow them to go to college online.
Oh, okay. Wow. Do you know what kind of degrees that they offer?
No, I
Associate's
do
degree.
not.
That's
No,
okay.
I don't know
Okay.
that.
That's interesting. What about, how does in the facility, are certain inmates assigned to cooking, different jobs, or their groundskeeping, that sort of thing around the facility that they do?
Yeah, we have a full-time cook, but quite often we have inmates assisting the cook,
Okay.
assisting. They all have chores. It could be cleanup,
Yeah.
it could be working in the yard, could be mowing the
Mhm.
yard, whatever. So yes, they all have chores.
You talked earlier about your recidivism rate being so low. Is there any one thing in particular about Hidden Creek that you attribute that to?
We are integrating them into society within a 6-month time period the best we can. The key
Yeah,
is to get them to hear that society will accept them. I'm going to repeat that. You've got to get them to realize that society will accept them. And that is not easy to do because a lot of them say,
sure.
well, I'll never make it because. And I understand that. They've been in prison 5 times. They've never had a car. They've never had a driver's license. And all of a sudden, we're introducing these things to them that are completely different than they've had. So we're trying our best to say, you're being accepted in society. You've proven that for 6 months. Don't go back to what you were doing.
So let's shift and talk about cost. Now, you mentioned earlier that they pay about $500 a month in rent to the facility. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, where does the rest of the funding for the facility come from, and how
The
does that work?
Department of Corrections through the state sends about another $800 a month per inmate to the facility. So for $1,300, we're doing all that we do.
Right. Wow. So now, do you know how much it costs for an inmate to be housed in ADC for a month?
$2,100 a month.
Okay, so 2,100 versus about 1,300
That's correct.
in Hidden Creek. Okay, all right. Are you seeing that? The pay and the rent thing and the working, is that something that's also kind of keeping them motivated and keeping them, is that sort of giving them something to work towards and sort of instilling some more responsibility?
Well, I think so. One of the things that I do that's a little different, I was a mortgage banker for 38 years. So I made home loans to people of all kinds. And
Yeah.
one of the things I try to do with these guys is give them a motivation that's real that will fit what they can potentially do. So I'll use an example. I say to them, if you will keep your job for a year or two, establish a little bit of credit,
Right.
in a year or two, you will be able to go out and go to a mortgage banker and finance a house of your own, which will be the
Right.
biggest asset you'll probably own in your lifetime. And then I use the mathematical example of if you were to buy a $100,000 house, the rules say you need $3,500. And using
Right.
the math that we're using, you ought to be able to save $3,500 in a year very easily since you're not drinking or drugging. So I use that as a tool quite often to say, here's something that you can do. I've seen guys do exactly what I told you and come back to
Yeah.
me later and say, I did it. I bought me a house and I made it.
Yeah. Now you've told me before, and I like for our listeners to know about it. You offer the facility, or through you or through some of your partners, there's also some post release, not supervision, but ways for people to, get into a place to live and not have to go back to where they're from, which, is always a factor in recidivism. Is that right? There's some partnerships that you have post release.
Yes. Well, number one, there are people that have apartments, let's call it, or houses that they will rent to these people. I do that myself some.
Okay.
One of the things that we're working on is I'm on the board of directors of a charity here in town called the Wolf Street Foundation. And they have what's called chem-free housing scattered around the state. And that's for people that are either coming out of rehab or wherever that want to live in a facility that's supervised where people do not drink or do drugs. So
Right.
typically our tenants come from rehab centers, but logically it ought to come from the prisons. And we're trying to get the prison population, the prison correction people to agree that that's a viable place for people from the prisons to go to after they leave prison. That would give them a better chance than going out somewhere with no help.
Sure. Yeah. Do you find that, after, once they're getting to this facility, do you find that it's sort of, is the general environment of the facility and the, I guess between the having to work and the classes and just all the different things that are going on, do you find that really sort of helps just keep people focused and keep them, focused on an end goal?
Yes, there's not a lot of spare time based on what I've told you. As you can see,
Right.
if you work and if you eat and if you go to classes and you go to church and you go to AA meetings, they're not sitting around watching a whole lot of TV, even though we have that for them.
Right. Right. I want to talk about cost again. So how long, you've been running this facility for 8 to 10 years. How long has it always been that same reimbursement rate of about
Pretty much. Yeah, unfortunately
$800?
so. It hasn't changed. We've asked
Okay.
for increases and hope to get that this year.
Okay. But you're still even operating on that same budget for the last 10 years. You're still having a great deal of success.
Having success from the standpoint that we assume that our recidivism rate is still much lower than the normal population. It should be.
Sure. So let me ask you this. How many, we talked about some expansion earlier. How many reentry beds do you think we ought to have?
No, at least 1,000.
What would we benefit from? 1,000?
1,000, yeah.
Yeah. You think it could be done on the same reimbursement cost of the $800?
Well, we've asked for an increase of $200 a month for the last 2 or 3 years. Just haven't gotten it. We're hoping that'll happen. With $1,000 a month and roughly $500 from the inmate, I think it will work and get other people to do this. There are only 205 beds in the reentry system in Arkansas. There used to be about 500. People quit. They couldn't make any money or couldn't get the beds filled, so they had to close their doors. So we're trying to solve that this time around.
Yeah, right. Okay. And, where are these other facilities? Do you know off the top of your head?
No, I don't want to, I could be off. I know there's one in Malvern. I think there's one in El Dorado or Texarkana, and I'm not sure about the others.
And how many, I don't think we've touched on this. How many beds are there at Hidden Creek?
60.
60. Okay.
So we house 120 inmates a year if they continue to roll them in and roll them out.
Right. And that's an interesting point too. We talked earlier about they can come to you when they have 18 months left on their sentence. And if they successfully complete the program in 6 months, well, that's 12 months of savings.
Right.
For the government.
Yes.
And the taxpayer,
more importantly, $25,000.
Right. And so that's what I find interesting is, they're getting in, you can do 120 inmates a year, and saving potentially 12 months worth of monthly payments on each one of these 120 inmates a year. That adds up pretty quick. That adds up to a lot of taxpayer dollars.
That comes up to $50,000 a bed because you're doing it twice a year.
Right. So, and that can be substantial savings to the taxpayer. Substantial.
Keep in mind, one of the beauties of this, there is no cost to the state for the real estate. I own the building. They don't pay anything, where they are paying multiple millions for all the facilities that they own around the state, which is understandable. But in this case, private individuals do reentry. So they would go out and establish these wherever the corrections people would agree to, anywhere that's needed, and cost the state zero in real estate.
Right. Even less money towards that the taxpayers are footing. That's even better. Yeah, that's great. Well, Jim, those are, I wanted our listeners to kind of hear just an overview of Hidden Creek and all the things that it can do and all the potential that the reentry has here in Arkansas. So those are all the questions that I have for you. I'm glad we could chat about this because it really is it's interesting for me from just the potential saving standpoint. That's the biggest thing.
I'm very glad to visit your program, and I thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This has been a great episode with Jim Bell from Hidden Creek Reentry. And again, I'm Will Cheatham, the Arkansas State Director with Right on Crime. Thanks for tuning in.